I never thought I would be the one telling this story. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a preacher. I'm just a man who has lived long enough to know the difference between an ordinary dream and something else. Something that doesn't let go of you when you open your eyes. Something that follows you into the daylight and sits heavy on your chest like a stone you cannot move. 3 nights ago I had that kind of dream, and I need to tell you what I saw. Because what was shown to me, it wasn't just for me, it was for all of us. For America, for the world, for everyone who still has ears to hear and eyes to see. Jesus Christ appeared to me in that dream. Not the way you see him in paintings, soft, distant, untouchable. No, he was close, he was real. And his eyes held the weight of everything that has ever been and everything that is yet to come. He didn't speak at first, he just looked at me. And then he said 4 words that I will carry with me until the day I die. I will show you. And he did. He showed me 4 warnings, 4 visions, 4 pieces of a puzzle that when put together paint a picture of where we are headed and what we must do before it's too late. This is not entertainment. This is not fiction. This is what I saw. And America, the world, we are not ready. As we enter the year 2026, these warnings feel more urgent than ever. It started with silence. Not the silence of a quiet room. Not the silence of night. This was different. This was the silence that exists before creation. The silence that holds all things. The silence that is so complete, so absolute, that you become aware of your own heartbeat as if it were the loudest sound in the universe. I was standing in a place that had no walls, no floor, no ceiling. Just space, endless, infinite space. But it wasn't dark. It was filled with a light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. A light that didn't hurt my eyes but somehow touched my soul. And then I saw him. He was walking toward me, slowly, deliberately. Each step he took seemed to echo through eternity. He wore a simple white robe, but it glowed with a brilliance that made the very air around him shimmer. His face was kind but serious, loving but urgent. When he stopped in front of me, I fell to my knees, not because I chose to, because my legs simply could not hold me in his presence. "Rise," he said. His voice was like water and fire at the same time, soothing and powerful. I stood trembling. "You have been chosen to see," he said. "Not because you are worthy, but because the time is short, and my people must be warned." He extended his hand toward the empty space beside us, and suddenly the air began to ripple like the surface of a pond disturbed by a stone. 4 warnings, he said. 4 truths. Watch carefully. Remember everything. And when you wake, speak. The first vision began to form before my eyes. I found myself standing in a city. At first glance, it looked like any American city. Tall buildings, busy streets, cars moving, people walking. Everything seemed normal. But then I looked closer. The people were walking, yes, but they weren't walking together. They were walking alone, every single one of them. And in their hands they held small glowing rectangles that consumed their entire attention. Their eyes never left those screens, not once. I watched a mother push a stroller past a homeless man sitting on the sidewalk. She didn't see him. Her eyes were on her phone. The homeless man reached out his hand, not for money, but just for acknowledgement, just for someone to see him. But she walked right by. I watched 2 teenagers sit on a bench, side by side, close enough to touch, but they never spoke. They never looked at each other. They just stared at their devices, occasionally laughing at something on their screens, while the real world and each other faded into invisibility. I watched a family sit down at a restaurant, a father, a mother, 2 children. They ordered food, they ate, but in the entire meal, not a single word was exchanged. Each one was lost in their own digital world, together in body but utterly alone in spirit. Jesus stood beside me, watching. "Do you see?" he asked quietly. "I see people," I said. "But they're not connecting. They have traded presence for distraction," he said. "They have traded depth for speed. They scroll through 1,000 faces but recognize none. They have 1,000 friends but no one who truly knows them. They speak in symbols and abbreviations but have forgotten the sound of real laughter, real tears, real conversation." The scene shifted. I was now inside a home, a beautiful home, expensive furniture, nice decorations, but something was wrong. I could feel it. A husband sat in one room, watching a screen. A wife sat in another room, watching a different screen. Their children were upstairs, each in their own room, each with their own device. The house was full of people, but it was empty of life. I saw the dinner table. It was dusty, unused. I saw the living room couch. It had impressions from bodies, but those bodies never sat there together. I saw family photos on the wall, smiling faces from years past. But those smiles had become relics of a time when people still looked at each other. The family, Jesus said, was designed to be a fortress, a sanctuary, a place where souls are nourished and love is learned. But look at what it has become. He gestured, and I saw deeper. I saw the loneliness behind the wife's eyes as she scrolled through images of other people's lives, wondering why her own felt so empty. I saw the anger building in the husband's heart, unable to express what he felt, unable to connect with the woman he had vowed to cherish. I saw the children growing up in a house but not a home, learning that love means being in the same building, not the same heart. This is the first warning, Jesus said, the death of connection. Humanity was made for communion with each other and with me, but they have built walls of glass and light between themselves. And behind those walls they are dying, slowly, silently, alone. I felt tears on my face. Can it be stopped? I asked. He looked at me with eyes full of sorrow and hope. It can be healed, he said, but only if they choose to put down their distractions and pick up each other again. Only if they remember that no notification is more important than the person sitting across from them. Only if they learn once more to be present. The vision faded, and I was left standing in that infinite space again, my heart heavy with what I had seen. But there was more to come. The second vision came like a wave crashing over me. I was standing in a vast auditorium, millions of seats, stretching as far as the eye could see, and every seat was filled, men, women, children, all sitting, all watching, all silent. In front of them was a massive screen, the largest screen I had ever seen. It stretched from horizon to horizon, dominating the sky itself. On that screen, images flickered, rapid, constant, never stopping, news reports, entertainment, opinions, scandals, outrage, celebration, fear, hope, lies dressed as truth, truth dismissed as lies, and the people watched. They didn't question, they didn't discuss, they simply absorbed. I walked among them, looking at their faces. Their eyes were glazed, unfocused, hypnotized by the endless stream of images. Their mouths hung slightly open, their hands lay limp at their sides. They're not thinking, I whispered. Jesus appeared beside me. They have outsourced their thinking, he said. They have given their minds to those who control the screen. They believe what they are told to believe. They hate what they are told to hate. They fear what they are told to fear. They have forgotten how to discern. The scene shifted. I saw great towers, not towers of stone, but towers of influence. They broadcast signals across the land, and in those towers sat figures cloaked in shadow, pulling levers, pushing buttons, deciding what the masses would think, feel, and believe. I saw them craft narratives like spiders weaving webs, a story here, a lie there, a half-truth to bind it all together, and the people below, caught in those webs, never even knew they were trapped. I saw division being manufactured, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor, not because of real differences, but because they had been told they were different. They had been told to fear each other. They had been told that the other side was the enemy. But who benefits from this division? I asked. Jesus pointed upward, to the shadowy figures in the towers. Those who divide rule, he said. As long as the people fight each other, they will never look up and see who is truly holding the chains. I saw families torn apart by politics. I saw friendships destroyed by arguments about things neither person truly understood. I saw communities that once helped each other, now suspicious of each other, isolated, afraid. And through it all, the screen kept flickering, feeding the fire, stoking the fear, keeping the people blind. The second warning, Jesus said, is this: when a people can no longer discern truth from lie, they become slaves without chains. They will march willingly into darkness, believing it is light. They will celebrate their own destruction, believing it is salvation. He turned to me and his eyes burned with an intensity I cannot describe. Tell them to turn off the screen, he said. Tell them to seek truth, not comfort. Tell them to think for themselves, to question what they are told, to look at the world with their own eyes, not through the lens of those who profit from their blindness. The auditorium began to fade, and I found myself gasping for air, as if I had been holding my breath for hours, but the visions were not yet complete. The third vision was the darkest. I stood in a great city, a city that I somehow knew represented more than just a place. It represented a nation, a civilization, an idea. The city was magnificent, towering buildings, grand monuments, flags flying. The streets were clean, the people were prosperous. Everything gleamed in the sunlight. But Jesus said, look beneath, and suddenly I could see through the surface. I could see the foundations. They were crumbling. Cracks ran through the bedrock. Roots spread through the support beams. The pillars that held everything up were hollow, eaten from within by something I could not name. What is this? I asked, horrified. This is what happens when a nation forgets its foundation, Jesus said. When the principles that built it are abandoned. when the values that held it together are mocked and discarded. I saw the cracks spreading upward, slowly at first, then faster. Buildings that looked strong began to sway. Streets that looked solid began to sink. The people above on the surface went about their lives, unaware that the ground beneath them was giving way. They don't see it, I said. They choose not to see it, he replied. It is easier to pretend that all is well than to face the truth. It is easier to point fingers at others than to examine oneself. It is easier to tear down than to rebuild. The scene shifted again. I saw great institutions, pillars of society, that had once stood for justice, truth, and service. Now they were hollow shells. The people within them no longer served the people. They served themselves. They served power. They served agendas that had nothing to do with the good of the nation. I saw leaders who spoke of unity while sowing division. I saw those entrusted with justice who perverted it for gain. I saw shepherds who fleeced their flocks instead of protecting them. And the people? Some cried out for change, but their voices were drowned out by the noise. Others had given up, retreating into cynicism and despair. And many simply didn't care anymore, numbed by the endless disappointments until they expected nothing good from those in power. When trust dies, Jesus said, so does a nation. When the people no longer believe in their institutions, their leaders, or each other, the end is near. I saw the cracks reaching the surface now, small fractures appearing in the streets, people stumbling, confusion spreading. Is there no hope? I asked, my voice breaking. Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. There is always hope, he said. But hope requires action. The foundations can be rebuilt, but only if the people are willing to do the hard work, only if they return to the principles that made them strong, only if they choose integrity over convenience, truth over comfort, service over self. He looked at the crumbling city with eyes full of pain. I have watched nations rise and fall throughout history, he said. The pattern is always the same: pride, division, decay, collapse. But it does not have to be this way. Not if they wake up, not if they change. The city began to shake, and I knew that the vision was reaching its end. But there was still one more warning, the final one. The final vision was unlike the others. I found myself standing on a hill, overlooking a vast landscape. To my left I saw darkness, a land shrouded in shadow, filled with the ruins of the cities I had seen in the previous visions. Smoke rose from the rubble. The air was thick with despair. To my right I saw light, a land bathed in golden sunlight, where people walked together in peace. Families gathered, communities thrived. There was laughter, there was love, there was life. And in the middle, stretching from the hill where I stood to the horizon, was a single road, a narrow road. And on that road I saw humanity walking, millions upon millions of people, all moving forward. But the road was splitting, diverging into two paths, one leading to the darkness, one leading to the light. Jesus stood beside me, and for the first time he was silent. I watched the people approach the fork in the road. Some walked with their heads down, following the crowd, not even noticing that they had a choice. They drifted toward the left, toward the darkness, without ever looking up. Others stopped at the fork. They looked left. They looked right. Some chose the light. Others, even after seeing both paths clearly, chose the darkness anyway. And some stood frozen, unable to decide, until the crowd pushed them one way or the other. Why do so many choose the dark path? I asked. Jesus finally spoke. Because the dark path is wide, he said. It is easy, it asks nothing of them. It promises pleasure without purpose, freedom without responsibility, gain without sacrifice, and for a time it delivers. But at the end of that path, he didn't need to finish. I could see the end, the ruins, the smoke, the emptiness, and the path of light. I asked. It is narrow, he said. It requires them to face their own brokenness, to forgive those who have hurt them, to love even when love is hard. It asks for sacrifice. It demands growth. But at the end of that path, I looked at the land of light, the families, the joy, the peace. This is the final warning, Jesus said. This is not just about nations or societies. This is about every single soul, every single heart, every single choice made in every single moment. He turned to face me directly, and his presence was overwhelming. Tell them, he said, that they stand at the crossroads, right now, not tomorrow, not next year, now. As the new year of 2026 begins, the choices they make will determine the world their children inherit. The path they walk now will shape the future for generations to come. His voice rose, and it seemed to echo across the entire landscape. Tell them that I am calling. I have always been calling. Through the noise and the chaos and the confusion, my voice has never stopped. But they must choose to listen. They must choose to turn. They must choose to come home. Tears streamed down my face. What if they don't listen? I asked. Jesus looked at the two paths, at the endless stream of humanity making their choices. Some will not, he admitted. That is the cost of freedom. I will not force anyone to walk the path of light. But for those who choose it, for those who hear my voice and follow, there is redemption, there is restoration, there is hope. He placed both hands on my shoulders and looked into my eyes. And there is you, he said, and others like you. Voices crying out in the wilderness, lights shining in the darkness. You cannot save everyone, but you can speak, you can warn, you can love, and through you some will hear, some will turn, some will choose the light. The landscape began to fade, and I felt myself being pulled back to the waking world. But before I left, I heard his final words. Remember what you have seen, and do not be silent. I woke up gasping. My sheets were soaked with sweat. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. The room was dark, but the images from the dream were burned into my mind, as vivid and real as anything I had ever experienced. I sat up slowly, trying to catch my breath. It was still night. The clock read 3:47 in the morning. The house was silent, but I could still feel the weight of what I had seen pressing down on me, as heavy as a mountain. I got out of bed and walked to the window. Outside, the world looked the same as it always did. Street lights, parked cars, quiet houses, normal, peaceful. But I knew better now. I knew what was happening beneath the surface. The disconnection, the blindness, the crumbling foundations, the choice that every soul was making, whether they realized it or not. I stood at that window for a long time, just thinking, processing, praying. I'm not a young man anymore. I've lived a full life. I've seen things, done things, survived things that would break most people. I thought I understood the world, but this dream, this vision, it showed me how much I didn't know, how much none of us know, how much we've been missing while we've been distracted by the noise.